So Casemiro has announced that he will be leaving Manchester United at the end of the season, and it's a massive blow for the club. He's had his ups and he's had his downs whilst he has been here, but he is irreplaceable. Tell me a player on the market that you can sign that has won 5 Champions League titles, that brings Casemiro's level of experience and also leadership. The only consolation here is that the profile that we need to bring into midfield is pretty obvious, and there's plenty of options on the market. So let's just very briefly cover the sort of profile that we need to bring into the midfield to play alongside Kobbie Mainoo, to play behind Bruno Fernandes and in front of our back four. And to me, the immediate thing that is so obvious is that we need a passer. Casemiro is a phenomenal passer. He's someone who can open up a low block, he can spread the pitch constantly with these big long switches to the far side. In terms of his passing range, Casemiro can do pretty much everything. The only drawback he has always had on the ball is his temperament. He's been a player who has sometimes wanted to play forward too quickly, and a lot of the time that's put the ball at risk and not allowed United to manage the tempo of a game. What United need to sign is a midfielder who brings the same passing range, but perhaps has a slightly different temperament and a slightly better understanding of, sometimes you've got to go sideways. Sometimes you've got to keep the ball just to allow your team to slowly move forward together. On the ball, for me, that is the big thing we need. Just someone comfortable in possession. A good first touch, of course, is always obvious, but someone that can pass the ball, someone that can make the ball do the work and sit in front of our defence and just keep us ticking over. Defensively, what we need, again, is pretty obvious. We need someone with more legs than Casemiro, someone who can run a little bit further, a little bit quicker, and for a little bit longer. Someone that can cover the big spaces, but can also duel in small spaces. Kobbie Mainoo last weekend proved that in a tight, compact system, he is good defensively. But there is no doubt we need someone better defensively to play alongside him or any other midfielder that we may sign this summer. We need someone that can get across the pitch, put the ground in, and basically just win their tackles, be strong in the air, all of those dueling situations, because it is so needed in the Premier League right now. Basically, what we need is the profile to get the best out of Kobbie Mainoo and also themselves perform individually. Now we're going to look at a few different sort of categories of player here, but the first one is obvious. This is sort of the star, this is sort of the dream signing for United this summer, and one that I still feel is quite achievable, and that is Elliot Anderson. It will forever confuse me as to why we didn't go for him last summer, but this is the ideal Casemiro replacement. Now, of course, you don't get anywhere near as much experience, but you do still get a real leader, someone who, for the England under-21s, was a fantastic leader in the side that won the tournament. In terms of his profile, what he brings on the pitch, well, he's a passer. This boy can pass all day long. He is up there for the most passes completed and attempted in the Premier League so far this season, which shows to me that he is a player who has that arrogance, that little bit of swagger to go and demand the ball off his teammates. And that is exactly what United need when we're trying to build possession. But also, the fact that he's completing so many of his passes would suggest that he does understand the need for a safe pass every now and then. Sometimes you just need to move the ball one side of the pitch to the other. I think particularly in an England shirt, he's done that very well. He's managed the tempo fantastically and almost been a bit of a deep-lying playmaker since he's been used by Thomas Tuchel. The great thing about Anderson, though, is that he also ranks incredibly high for progressive passes as well, which shows exactly what we need. Someone who can manage the tempo with his passing, but also has that ability to switch it up, to inject that little bit of tempo and speed. Anderson is a fantastic forward-thinking player, and that for me is a Manchester United midfielder. Someone who can take their moment to look after the ball, but also someone who can play at a breakneck speed, can quickly move the ball forward through the lines, and also make the most of the massive Old Trafford pitch. And of course, what I'm talking about is the need for long passing. Anderson has this in abundance, the ability to pick the ball up, switch it to the far side. That's how United can make the pitch nice and big, how we can stretch the opposition defence and just attack at these insane speeds. Of course, the other thing that Anderson brings is his defensive work rate, his defensive intensity, and also his defensive intelligence. Elliot Anderson most weeks is topping the charts, or certainly near the top, for some sort of defensive metric, and that is because he is a player who covers every blade of grass, gets stuck into every duel. He's like a proper English number 8, if you know what I mean. Someone who's going to get about the pitch, get stuck in, he's nasty to play against almost, but very strong. Not necessarily the tallest player in the world, or physically the biggest looking, but he's very clever with how he uses his body, often getting himself across the opposition, sort of shrugging them off in defensive situations, actually making it look quite easy. Perhaps the only concern here would be a height one, but perhaps if you recruit big centre-backs you can sort of get around that. I think technically what you get from this midfield three on the ball is nearly a perfect balance and is honestly an absolute joke. So yeah, Anderson is top of the list. Now, the next player that I want to go for is a more experienced one, someone that has been there and done that, and you can see on the screen here, I am going for Locatelli. Now, Locatelli has been a favourite of mine ever since Euro 2021, when he was playing for Sassuolo and Italy in the summer, and he was just absolutely fantastic. I think he had a dry spell in his career, but I think recently he has grown again, and this season in the Serie A, he has attempted the most passes out of any player in the whole division. That tells me, again, that he is a high-volume midfielder. He is someone that wants to get on the ball, look after the ball, make the passes, make the ball do the work to help his side manage the tempo. And that is exactly what Manchester United need. If Kobbie Mainoo is to be your sort of small linking associative player who's going to dribble with the ball occasionally, he's going to carry occasionally, he's going to get close, he's going to combine with people, well then behind him you need someone that can supply the ball to the forward areas, and Locatelli is exactly that. I think his long passing in particular is absolutely fantastic. I think he's one of the best long passers anywhere in European football at this moment in time. But what you can't forget is his line splits as well. He's excellent at squeezing a ball through the play. So when the opposition are behind the ball, they're in their compact low block, and it sort of looks like there is no forward pass on, Locatelli is the sort of guy who can just find it. His game intelligence is fantastic, and I think his risk assessment is really good as well. Sort of assessing that moment where, you know, it's not worth the risk, we need to keep it, we need to play sideways. But then in the next moment, recognising that if we can take that risk, if we can play that ball, we're going to split the opposition in half. And I think he makes those decisions very well. I think he problem solves very well on the ball, which isn't something that we've always been able to say for the United midfield. So on the ball, in that regard, Locatelli is sort of that player who sits in front of the back line and dictates and dominates the game in Michael Carrick-esque fashion. Could be lovely. In terms of defensively, Locatelli is a fairly big guy, he's quite tall and he's very strong in his duels. His dueling numbers this season have been absolutely fantastic, and he's a player who's not afraid to put his body in the line. You know, he is that sort of midfielder that can go into the back five, he can fill into the box when needed, and he will put his body on the line. He will throw himself in front of blocks. My only real concern with Locatelli is, one, he's a little bit similar to Casemiro in the sense that he can't cover ground at like a million miles an hour. That's concern number one. And just the other is his consistency. I think he's a player that has sort of looked amazing and then plateaued and then dipped and then looked amazing. That's my only slight concern with regards to Locatelli, particularly in possession. I think when he's on it, I think he's fantastic. One of the most probably underappreciated players in Europe, and certainly one of my favourite. I think the way that he moves the ball is fantastic. But there is an inconsistency there. So it's one to assess for Manchester United. You get experience, you get someone who's won trophies, brings a lot of know-how to the game, a lot of intelligence. So it might be worth a punt, and I don't think it'd be too expensive. Next up, we are going for Premier League experience. This one might be a little bit more expensive, but I'm going for Tonali from Newcastle. Now, you might immediately think this is just insanely expensive and unrealistic, and perhaps it is. But United are going to have money this summer. You would expect United to qualify for the Champions League, and there's some big contracts that aren't going to be paid by United anymore. Tonali has always been a little bit unsettled at Newcastle. It's always felt like he wouldn't mind a move away from the club. It never really felt like his dream move. If you were to sign Tonali, if you were to bring him into the club, then what you're getting is, for me, one of the best man-to-man players in the Premier League. In terms of if you are looking off the ball to engage in a high press and you want to pick up one midfielder each, which a lot of managers look to do at times, I think Tonali is incredible. Whether that's as a 6, sort of shadowing the opposition number 10, whether that's as an 8 going man-for-man in that midfield battle, or actually playing as a 10, picking up the opposition's solo pivot, I think Tonali can do absolutely everything defensively. His work rate, his energy is elite. One of the most physical players in the Premier League. Again, he doesn't look like the biggest guy, but the way that he uses his body, he just shrugs people off, and he is absolutely relentless off the ball. The way that he runs is just non-stop, to be honest. It's a little bit tiring to watch almost sometimes because he literally never stops going. He would cover ground in a way that Casemiro never could, and perhaps next to Kobbie Mainoo in midfield, that's sort of what we need. Now, of course, for Tonali to really tick the boxes of a Manchester United midfielder, he needs to bring something for us in possession as well, and I think he does. Now, Tonali is quite an interesting player on the ball because for me, I don't think there is one thing that he excels at. I think he's sort of this jack-of-all-trades player, a player that can do a little bit of everything, but perhaps isn't absolutely elite in one department. Now, for some people, that's going to put you off of this signing a little bit, but for me, I quite like it because I don't think there's an obvious weakness. Over the past few seasons, we've had a balance issue in the Manchester United squad. We'll bring one player in and they're great at this, but bad at this, so we have to get certain partners playing alongside them. It's been very difficult to get a balanced team. With Tonali, when there is no obvious flaw, you can partner him with almost any other central midfielder, and you can just find a way for it to work, particularly in a double pivot, where there's that moment where he can drop deeper and play as the deepest man, or he can go forward and be a box-to-box threat and even score goals. I think that suits him, and sort of dovetailing with Casemiro, who does something similar, could be a really nice way of getting the best out of Tonali. And in terms of what he does bring on the ball, I think he's very technical. I think he looks after the ball very nicely, but it's his forward-thinking passing, which I always enjoy watching. Those quick switches. You win the ball back, and rather than taking your time, dilly-dallying, he just picks the ball up and he pings it forward. Sort of a little bit like Casemiro. That would almost be a like-for-like replacement with that long passing range. But he can also play through the lines as well. And when you're getting all of that defensive work with this as well, I think Tonali, if he's affordable, I don't know, but if he is, I think United should be all over that deal, because for me, he's a Manchester United midfielder. Now, our last player is a bit more of an out there shout, not so much of a main man, but he is someone that we have spoken about recently, and that is Mamadou Sangare. Now, I think he's a little bit of a different profile to what we've spoken about so far, but in terms of what you get from Sangare, I think, again, it's a defensive dueler. Someone who's got really long legs and covers a lot of ground, is pretty quick in the way that he covers the pitch. And again, if you are trying to not necessarily replace Casemiro like for like, but bring in a slightly different profile, someone who can play with a bit more intensity, cover more ground off the ball, Sangare could be your man. The way that he presses is, again, relentless, long-legged dueler. It's really difficult to beat. You know those players in five-a-side that have those long legs that you just can't get past? That's Sangare. He's almost impossible to dribble against because his legs are so long, he just hooks the ball away. A little bit like Aaron Wan-Bissaka. So yeah, if that's what you want alongside Casemiro, if you feel you need that defensive cover, if you feel you need those legs, Sangare is absolutely your man. But I think even on the ball, he's actually quite different to Casemiro. He's someone who's actually quite agile in possession despite his height. Got a very good balance to the way that he plays. So when put under pressure, he's not one of these players who sort of freezes on the spot and doesn't know what to do. He takes the ball under very well and is quite manipulative with his work. He can sort of shift and swerve that body, get himself moving and evade the pressure of the opposition, which would actually bring something new to the United midfield. If you can imagine us trying to play out from the back in the first phase, we would go from last season having Casemiro and De Ligt to suddenly having Casemiro and Sangare, two press-resistant midfielders. That would be almost alien to Manchester United fans, to be honest. What we would be watching in the first phase would be incredible. But again, as we've asked for all videos, Sangare can play a direct passing game as well. Now, when I'm talking about direct, I don't necessarily mean 90-yard long balls pumped into the box. I mean playing with a speed, I think, an intensity, but a verticality to a lot of your passes as well. Now, they don't have to be literal straight passes, but that desire to get the ball moving forward, up the pitch as quickly as possible. I think Sangare has been absolutely magnificent in the French league so far this season. His passing game has really caught my eye because it wasn't the sort of player that I was expecting to watch. I was expecting to watch this physical dueler, and sure, he can do that dribbling work, but then to see that left-footed passing range as well, the fact that he can clip the ball, he can drive the ball wide either side of the pitch, he can play through the middle as well, and he's going to be a lot cheaper than everyone else on the list. I think he's a really, really nice outside shout. So yes, there you have it. 4 midfielders that Manchester United could look at this summer to try and replace Casemiro. Now, like I said, actually replacing Casemiro like for like is almost impossible. There isn't another Casemiro out there. There never has been and perhaps never will be again. So you've got to try and be a little bit creative. Of course, this isn't even discussing the likes of Adam Wharton or Carlos Baleba. There's so many different players out there that United could look at this summer. If you want to do a midfield rebuild, which, United seem to want to do this summer, it's the time to do it. There are about 1 million players out there who could come in and offer something different or better than what United have currently. So it's going to be a difficult task. It's one that we have to get right. But I think there are so many just amazing midfield options out there for us. These are 4 of them. Let me know what you think of these guys, but also some different midfielders that you would like us to discuss in different videos. Apart from that though, we are now finished for this particular video, so we're going to wrap up there. Thank you guys very much for watching this one. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like, subscribe, and get your notifications on. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.